Hi to all. Today we see a paper titled Modeling Human Intuitions about Liquid Flowing with Particle-Based Simulations from the same research group, Department of Brain and Cognitive Sciences, MIT Cambridge. So last paper we saw that a human can able to understand the physical scene involving the dynamics of rigid bodies like rigid solid objects can be supported by some intuitive physics engine running inside our human brain based on approximate probabilistic simulations. Similar to that line, that physical scene understanding of more complex and unexplored fluid dynamics can also be understood by some kind of physics-based engine based on some approximate probabilistic simulations. So the author summarized this kind of research in a briefly as that although most people struggle to learn physics in school, but a human brain is a remarkable intuitive physicist when it comes to understand the unconscious judgments we make in interacting in the world, especially with the rigid objects or fluid flows. So, what kind of computations in the brain support these abilities? So, the author describes that there should be some evidence that there can be some approximate probabilistic simulations running inside our human brains and helps to make these judgments about these rigid objects, also about flowing and splashing liquids. So they also verified with the people's responses related to these judgments are more consistent with very coarse approximation models running inside human brain. So when we see this picture, we could able to easily see that a fluid is flowing inside a glass, tilted glass, and the tilted is further upward, there is a large chance of fluid to flow outside. Similarly, in the right side figure, the children can very well understood about the flow pattern of the liquids and play around with that. So, based on these pictures, what is the nature of the people's implicit knowledge of liquid dynamics? So, how the people could understand this and make predictions and make an understanding about this fluid dynamics and make an important discoveries. So there could be some kind of cognitive mechanisms inside our human brains, and those physical scene understandings should be based on some approximate probabilistic simulations. So this intuitive fluid engines running inside that helps the human's cognition to explain these physical predictions should be some form of approximate probabilistic simulation. The three word approximations, probabilistic based, and the simulation based. So these kind of things build that proposal has been verified with two psychophysical experiments in this paper, and comparing with some five different models. Four are based on simulation based models, physics based, and the fifth one is data driven approach, a simple neural network alternative called pattern recognition task, taken as a pattern recognition task using deep convolutional neural networks. So they examine how well the people predicts on these experimental things with each models, and they could able to come up with a conclusion or deduction that the intuitive fluid engine they build based on smooth particle hydrodynamics could very well explain or very well match with the experimental what they did in this paper, and those people's predictions across all experiments are very well explained by this physics-based motivated particle-based simulation models, and this could able to give the best single results out of this among these five models, and this model is a very approximate simulations. So the main contributions of this present paper is to show and demonstrate that highly an approximate simulation method could very well be sufficient for everyday kinds of predictions that people make. So this is the very crux of the paper, and background of this related research is that many of the previous studies have shown that some kind of an approximate Newtonian simulations should help the humans to understand the rigid body dynamics of the physical scene. So similar, taking the inspiration that we say that there should be some kind of multiple systems supporting these physical scene understandings, and one of which may be a physics-based simulations. So the objective is to provide the first examination of the mental simulation as account of people's ability to predict the fluid flows in realistic situations. And furthermore, there are strong reasons to believe that fluid simulation in the brain is not prohibitively expensive. The reason is because the model we took are very less in terms of computational cost, and could be, and in comparison today's deep neural networks for computer visions, which are thought to be reasonable models of part of biological visual processing. These neural network models, as we know, that it's computation intensive, data rich, hungry, and compared to that, these simulation models are very coarse, approximate, and easy to learn in a very yeah, can be learned in very short times. So these are some kind of mounting evidence that human predictions and inferences about these rigid bodies could be mainly supported by some kind of simulation-based approach. So they believe that it is possible that human perform some kind of quantitative approximate simulations, and also they are agree that they are not justifiable to dismiss this possibility out of the hand. So there are some certain other models that which helps to predict the fluid viscosity, but those models alone cannot help to understand the dynamics of the fluids. So say the so these are the things that the author describes in the introductions and the background of background, and the materials and the models and the experiments all been most of the rest of the pages of this paper, and which are mostly related to the physics, that how what is the background of smooth particle hydrodynamics, and why we explain that fluid dynamics models can be based on two approaches. One is the Eulerian based approach and the Lagrangian based approach. Eulerian based approach is some kind of a volume fixed volume approach, and they don't track the fluid particles. Rather, they try to identify the properties of the fluids of the fixed reference frame. So this smooth particle hydrodynamics is different, like it's a particle business. So we don't have to go deep into that. So these are the explanations comes in the rest of these papers, and also author describes about the experimental setup they did it to verify that mental model of based on smooth particle hydrodynamics, which is very approximate and very probabilistic, can very well explain the human predictions in these two experiments. One experiment is something that how the field flows across different obstacles, and how much can be fallen to the right side and how much to be fallen to the left side. The second experiment is similar to the first experiment, that how the fluid flows and how much would enter into a cup placed at the bottom at different positions. So based on these experimental evidences and the results that we obtained through different models, they could able to make some conclusions and discussions, which we will see briefly now. So these are the experimental results, and this we come to a discussion that they says that this physics intuitive fluid engine based on the particle based simulations can very well predict how fluid will flow in the world, and the success of this model is consistent with the most of the hypotheses of approximate probability simulation that explains some rigid body dynamics in the previous papers. and these are very high simplified related to those used in engineering applications. These orders of magnitude of computational order is very low. Orders of magnitude very low in compared to the engineering or graphical applications. So there are also quite possibilities to make some criticism that these models are highly impractical and realistic, and because of the computational cost and details of the physics knowledge embedded. But we have to say that these extremely simplified simulations being utilized in this as a intuitive physics engines, which has a very low computational cost, and they could able to make a reasonable accurate quantitative predictions of the fluid flow that people are able to make. So there can we also the people also accept that there can be a model which may not be that sophisticated as this intuitive fluid engine. To further that, there should be some future research to further explore more some kind of a simpler simulation alternative compared to the one proposed here. And and also they claim that the future work should be based upon how the precisions we can make, how far the temporal time scales we can go further enough to make predictions, and other parametric features of the mental simulations for the fluids might be implemented. And the one instant that would be that how far ahead one must mentally simulate may be useful in distinguishing between different potential models. And also that can these mental models can extend to other areas other than involving in physics dynamics. So that could be some kind of an analytical reasoning that has to be done. And also the fMRI data shows that how this physics engine can be represented a brain. Based on this fMRI data shows that there should be some kind of array of cortical regions related to the multiple demand system. So based on this data, there should be some kind of candidate representation of the recurrent neural network across those cortical regions, which can be a parallel and distributed structures. And also there could be more questions can be raised, that are more general questions for physicists, is that how people's knowledge comes from even a 5 months baby can distinguish between solids and liquid in a novel context after observing observing the patterns in a very short time. And they are very data efficient, experience based, uh, they are learning processes. So what perhaps that simulation model itself can be learned through this involvement of the young children, and more complex features involved in those unknown dynamical models can be observed as an emerging mature, and this would be some kind of a future that physics-based recurrent neural control could be a running model in running inside our children, and those parameters of that unknown physics-based recurrent neural network is learned based on observing those data, and that would be mental that could help uh, to make the physical scene understanding across the wide different arena, not only of a rigid based dynamics and fluid dynamics, and it can be go across even further. So thank you so much.